At the start of the fall season, we all began to fall in love with Fall Guys. The clumsy, falling beans fell into the gaming ether and in turn fell into our hearts. Okay, I'll stop now, for real. In all seriousness, Fall Guys became nothing short of a global phenomenon earlier this year. However, 3 months after the game's initial release, we have seen a steady decline in its popularity. Obviously, video games, like all things, experience spikes and dips in popularity as trends come and go, but rarely do we see such an extreme example as Fall Guys. But quickly, before we get into it, make sure to like this video and subscribe and ring the notification bell for new videos when they come out. A bunch of subscribers have told me in the recent weeks that they've been unsubscribed without them knowing about it, so to make sure that YouTube can't have their way, give them the middle finger and like this video. Subscribe, it really does help. To begin, let's discuss the rise. Fall Guys came out on the 4th of August 2020, both on Steam and on the PlayStation 4, and it quickly reached an unbelievable 1.5 million players within just 24 hours. Now, this massive number of players is largely thanks to Fall Guys being one of the free PlayStation Plus games for the month of August. And at the time of writing, Fall Guys is actually the most downloaded PlayStation Plus game since the service's launch, all the way back in 2010. The idea to add the game to the monthly roster was nothing short of sheer genius. Fall Guys had the attraction of being both new and of being free. And as well as this, it was packaged with the online service necessary to play the game. Too often, PlayStation users buy a game with online capabilities only to then have to go back and make another purchase in order to access all of the content. By giving Fall Guys away to those who already owned PlayStation Plus and therefore could play online as the game requires, only one transaction was required, making a far more simple and consumer-friendly experience. Not only that, but people who didn't already have a PlayStation Plus subscription could essentially get the new $20 game and the service required for it for half of that price. In terms of business strategy, Fall Guys played the market exceedingly well, making them both easy and cheap to acquire. Normally, easy and cheap is not a compliment though, but in this case it actually is. Now, having said this, it is not just accessibility and price that matter to a game's success. It also has to actively work to gain a following, because, after all, a game can be cheap as chips and on every platform available, but if no one knows about it, then no one will play it. Now, being a PlayStation Plus game does bring a certain level of advertising, but not enough to make a roaring success. Otherwise, every game of the month would be the most downloaded PlayStation Plus game thus far. However, to draw in the millions of players that Fall Guys has achieved, they did not go the traditional route of TV ads and sponsorships. Instead, Fall Guys tapped into the ever-growing trend of word-of-mouth advertising through social media, and in this case, it was done primarily through streaming on Twitch. Now, the role that Twitch played in Fall Guys' rise to fame cannot be understated. 23 million hours of Fall Guys was viewed on Twitch in the first week of the game's release. And less than a month after the game came out, a Twitch Rivals tournament was being held within the game, garnering it yet more attention. I really don't think this can be understated. A game can now become an international phenomenon through practically social media alone. Now, it is important to note, though, that not just any game could have done what Fall Guys did, even with the same level of talk behind it. Fall Guys was fundamentally right for the time that it was released. Games take a long time to make, often several years, meaning that developers have to be ahead of the curve when it comes to what people want. All too often, a game will begin development with the inspiration of what is popular at that time, but years later, when it comes out and the game eventually releases, it is woefully outdated. Take the recent Avengers game as an example. Now, we can take an educated guess that the first Avengers game began development in probably around 2015, or at least that's when the discussions began. And we can do this considering that that was the release year of Crystal Dynamics' last title, and the first Avengers teaser came out in 2017, which would put 2015 just about the right place. Now, at that time, Destiny was reaching its peak in popularity, having come out just the year before, and the first of many DLCs were beginning to be released. Having played Avengers, it's clear to see how that Destiny train shaped the development of Avengers. Now, I'm not saying that games and their developers can't get inspiration from each other, but when they borrow so heavily from a specific style, they run the risk of said style going out of date by the time that their vision is realized. And that's exactly what happened here. The Avengers is a 2015 game that was released in 2020, and it shows. And with that, my Avengers rant and rambling is over. The whole point is that Fall Guys is a game made for 2020. In the midst of a global pandemic, numerous international lockdowns, and the feelings of panic and sadness all over, we all needed something to lift our spirits, and Fall Guys did just that. I mean, you only have to explain the premise of the game to bring a smile to somebody's face. 60 customizable beans play a game of Takeshi's Castle in order to earn tiny crowns and buy costumes. I mean, amid all of the turmoil of 2020, we really needed happiness and joy. And Fall Guys brought that innocent joy back to us. Now, aside from the obvious visual joy and the silly premise, Fall Guys delivered arguably the most important thing that we have been missing this year. It was a means to connect. We are all separated to protect each other, but even though this isolation is necessary, it's still damn lonely. Even the most antisocial of us, like probably most of us gamers, need contact. And the amazing thing is that Fall Guys provided a new way to interact with one another, so that we don't just have to sit through yet another shit quiz on Zoom. The mere knowledge that every ridiculously dressed bean that you dove next to had been designed by another human allowed us to connect again. What's more, Fall Guys permeated beyond the game itself, with things like Twitch, YouTube, memes, and many, many more things that were there for consumption even when you were away from the game. It felt like being in on a joke that no one was left out of, and that sense of fun and togetherness is what made the rise of Fall Guys. But that, of course, brings us to the fall. The most obvious reason for the decline in Fall Guys is the rise of the 2018 indie game Among Us. Now, by this point, the comparisons between the two games have been hashed out so many times. Both are online multiplayers, both have cartoony aesthetics, both involve small bean-like creatures falling to their deaths. However, Among Us does what Fall Guys did well, and does it to an even greater extent. Now, in terms of accessibility, Among Us is not, as of yet, available on consoles, but, like Fall Guys, it is on Steam. But in a much more accessible way, Among Us is available on mobile, whereas Fall Guys is not. Now, while Fall Guys managed to reach a massive player base through its inclusion in PlayStation Plus, Among Us completely overshadowed that by being on both the Apple App Store and on Google Play. As much as owning a console and/or a PC feels second nature to the likes of us, not everyone does have such a luxury. However, pretty much everybody owns a smartphone nowadays. Mobile games sometimes get a bad reputation for being less than, but when done well, they have the capability of reaching far more people than any console could. Among Us managed to entice all Fall Guys players and non-gamers alike simply by being a mobile game. Furthermore, Among Us is cheaper, being free on mobile, and less than $5 on Steam. Okay, quick side note. Cami, my fantastic writer who lives in the UK, wrote this script for us today. $5 is such a British term, so in America, like $5, less than $5. That's the American translation of that. That's so funny. That's so British. Now, as I've already stated, the social aspect of Fall Guys was a major factor in its popularity. But once again, Among Us just expanded on this. Firstly, Among Us is a cross-platform game, while Fall Guys is not. In a time where connectivity is paramount, the ability to connect and play with everybody and anybody is critical. Secondly, and in my opinion most importantly, Among Us does not require any gaming skill to play. This means, once again, that anyone can play Among Us, while Fall Guys does require basic gaming knowledge, such as knowing your way around a controller. While those of us who have been playing video games for any period of time will certainly find the controls for Fall Guys second nature, we must remember that not everyone is like that. Fall Guys alienates anyone who panics at the sight of a controller, like I'm sure many of our parents or even just our friends that try to stay away from video games. So while Fall Guys is much more intimidating for a non-gamer, Among Us is far more noob-friendly, for lack of a better term. However, to claim that Among Us's rise is the sole contributor to Fall Guys' fall seems narrow-sighted. The fact is, the games like Fall Guys need constant updates because when it comes down to it, their gameplay is incredibly basic. Once you've played all of the different rounds and styles, all that's left is to get good. And if you have no interest in that, then well, you've finished Fall Guys. For those of us who don't necessarily want to grind incessantly until we can beat the slime climb with our eyes closed, or play every day to unlock every possible skin, then there really is nothing left to draw you back into the game until new rounds or mini games are introduced. But unfortunately, the variety of rounds in the game just isn't enough, at least in my opinion. After the first month of the game's release, we were all bored of the same recycled games, and we desperately needed a shakeup in the form of new and interesting rounds. And Season 2 seemed to be gearing up to provide just that. However, when the next season actually came around, it was criminally underwhelming, with only 2 new levels and 2 new variants on the existing ones. I thought it was frankly ridiculous. And that brings us to our conclusion. In 2019, a study from the University of Denmark showed how the global attention span is narrowing and trends simply don't last as long as they used to. Fall Guys is a prime example of this, with a sharp rise to popularity and an equally sharp fall a month later. So, could Fall Guys rise again? Yes, definitely. Will it? Maybe. Fall Guys desperately needs more content in order to bring it back into the fore again, and with Season 3 coming in the first half of December, we can only keep our fingers crossed for a ton of new levels. The problem lies in the era that we have just entered with the next generation. Everyone's attention is now solely on the new consoles and the new next-gen games that are either out now for launch or just around the corner. No matter how good the next Fall Guys update is, it will not overshadow the dawn of the next generation. A great update and maybe some videos by popular YouTubers could bring back some attention to the game, but I don't think that it will ever reach the same level of popularity that it had back in August. But that's all from me. If you liked the video, please like it. If you didn't, well, you know what to do as well. If you want to subscribe, please do so and ring the notification bell so that you get notified of new videos like this the moment that they come out. The stats that YouTube gives me says that most of the people that will see this video have actually seen one of my videos before, they just haven't subscribed yet. So why not make today the day? Let's take this step forward together. I mean, I say together like you're doing all of the work. I'm just kind of leeching off of it. I don't know. Do whatever you want. I don't care. I mean, I do care, but this is the end of it. I'm stalling. Okay, end of video. Bye.